You're listening to Berks Weekly. My name is Jason Hugg, and today my guest is Gavin Milligan, a resident of Maidencreek Township. And he's been all over Berks County doing a lot of great things. Gavin, take it away and introduce yourself. I think that's the best way to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. I am a resident of Maidencreek. I do a lot around the county. First and foremost, professionally, I have a family business, Advanced Comfort Specialists. We do residential, but I'd say mostly commercial, HVAC, commercial refrigeration. I'm the business development manager there, just serving my time in the family business. You know what I mean? Doing my time until, my family's ready to retire and his business partner's family's ready to retire. Personally, I have a huge passion for the community. I started as an intern for Olivet Boys and Girls Club, which opened me to a world of nonprofits and philanthropy and being in the community that I've never experienced before until then. In my mind, the perfect life was, go to school, get a job, make money at that job, buy a house, have a dog, have a wife, have some kids, and ride out until retirement. It's just one thing I didn't...
The all-American.
Right, exactly. One thing I didn't keep in mind was that there are initiatives in the community. There's things happening. There's things that I don't like that I complain about all the time that I actually could influence to change, believe it or not. You can be more than just a keyboard warrior. So, that said, I did my internship at Olivet, and then I moved into the family business. And then, in that time, now that I have time away from Olivet and things like that, I've gotten myself involved in a lot of nonprofits and government agencies to again just make the change that I think is best. There's a lot of change that we want to happen.
So why was that important to you? Because as someone just kind of growing up, whether you grow up in Berks County or I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Cincinnati, and then I eventually moved into Pennsylvania later. But why? Where did you get that sense of you want to do better? You want to be more involved and engaged in your own community, because that doesn't always happen to people right away.
And I think first and foremost, it's important to mention that I'm only 21 years old. We did a podcast, I think 5 years ago now.
Yes.
I was a sophomore or junior in high school.
Yes.
And I was still out doing things then. I've been doing it since I was 14, 15. At my age, when I was in middle school, in high school, and even now, there's a lot of people, especially in Maidencreek, Fleetwood Area School District. It's a lot of farmland and a little bit of suburbs. Everyone wants to be a doctor and a lawyer and live in a big city and go out and do things. And there's this stigma that in Berks County there's nothing to do, when it's not true. Yes, we don't have as many things to do as Philadelphia or New York City or Boston or Los Angeles or whatever, but just as much as there's pros there's cons. I think we have a lot of great things going on here in Berks County and in Maidencreek Township that we're not as developed as those places, but we don't want to be. You know what I mean? There's pros of not being that developed. We have enough of what we need, and I was so stuck. I wasn't stuck in it. Other people were stuck in it, and I recognized that they were stuck in the fact that there was nothing to do here, and the goal was to leave, right? And that's what we see a lot in the city of Reading, too, because the city needs to be revitalized as well, which is great because they have the new, CRIS designation, and they're going to work through that, and it's going to be great. But
it seems to be a common thing, though, maybe not across the board, but in different areas, because I went to high school in the Collegeville area, which is now has seen a lot more development since I went to high school there. But the same kind of sentiment was there too before they put in the big shopping centers with Wegmans and the rest of that, which was, there's nothing to do here, so you need to go somewhere else to do a lot of bigger things. And rarely would you get people to say, there are things here you can do. This is a community, but people live there still, right? So I don't think that's unique to Berks County, of course, but it does seem like to be a thing that you do think of when you're kind of growing up as there's less opportunities here because you're used to everything here rather than there's different opportunity. The grass is always greener on the other side.
And you know what? There's a lot of friends that I have that I went to high school with that are in college now, that are just about to finish college, that they needed those bigger opportunities, right? They were somewhat limited to what they could do here because of the career path they chose. But there's a lot in Berks County.
And you did not go down the college path.
I did not. So I went to BCTC, Berks Career and Technology Center, and I was in the business management and entrepreneurship program, which was so enriching. It's you're taking college level courses. It's just a little bit different. And I think what's been really great, I'm the board president for BCTC's Education Foundation, so I'm a huge advocate for BCTC. What's really great is it's not a VOTEC, and it hasn't been for a while, right? People don't even 5 years ago, it was we need to change the status quo. Now that's changed, I think, and the enrollment numbers reflect that. We have just as many white collar jobs as we do blue collar jobs in terms of career paths at the school. So
I think the perception's a little different too.
Oh yeah, it's so different, and it's so different that they're facing a lot of pressure to expand their infrastructure, build new classrooms and things like that.
Oh, good.
Because the wait list is long.
Yeah.
I think they have. Don't quote me. I think 2,200 students, and there's 500 on a waiting list.
Oh wow!
So it's pretty intense. The strain of infrastructure because that stigma's changed, which is great. But I went to BCTC for business management, which if you want to be an executive of a Fortune 500 company, that's not acceptable to them. You know what I mean? But it's enough to have a good combination of theory and clinical experience. You get your hands dirty, you roll up your sleeves. I've done, I think I did 3 internships while I was there, and a co-op, so, I had all the opportunities in the world to get my hands in, and, what I'm doing in business, it's really nothing but soft skills, right? Know how to talk to people, know how to be organized. You learn things like, reading bank statements and whatnot, and financial statements. You learn that in the process, right? You could learn it in school, but you don't have to. It's really not that hard. So that's where I got my education, which further reinforced that going into middle school and going through high school and finishing high school, that we have what we need here. We have a lot. So tying that back to everything I'm doing now, there's a lot of opportunities for people to get involved, especially when you get in the right circles, you meet the right people, you stay open-minded, and you meet all these people, and there's a lot of really great people that also want to have a positive influence on the county and the initiatives in the county.
So you kind of found more, I guess you could say you've kind of found more things here that Berks County has to offer than if you were to look at it from just the top and say, well, there aren't high-end jobs, there aren't this, that, and the other thing. Well, we just don't have much. But you kind of looked a little bit deeper and said, actually, we do have a lot to offer here.
Right.
And there's a lot more here. And I've kind of seen the same thing, doing news reporting here, and there's a lot more stories here. There's a lot more things that are happening here than people generally perceive as just even what's going on day to day.
Yep. And as you know, being in the media for Berks County, there's a lot going on.
Yes.
And people don't realize it.
Yeah. Agriculture is
it's huge.
I don't know if you're into that really at all.
Yeah, it's huge.
But there's a huge agriculture industry even here, and I honestly was not aware of that.
Yep.
But there's so much going on.
Yeah, it's great. And what's important is you need someone to communicate that and advocate for it, which is what you're doing, which is what I'm doing when I can in my groups.
Right.
It's why I'm trying to get involved in different
Ways
organizations.
to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's many different ways, right? All you need is just someone to promote it, and they may just, it may just be, an accountant that is looking to network, so they join a board. Then they come home and tell their family, "Oh, this is a great organization," and then those family members spread it, right? And that's a slow burn, but it's different than having tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views on a website or on Facebook and things like that, like you have. But that's all it takes. For me, something I'm both proud of and stressed out about is that I believe the number is 14 now between the boards and the committees that I serve on, mostly nonprofit. But I've also recently joined Maidencreek Township's Planning Commission. From doing that and being involved in being in the know, being in the network for municipal planning across the county, you learn about the things that are coming and the things that people are working on. people think there's nothing here. And you know what? If what we have now isn't enough, you should be in the room when we talk about all of the businesses and the elected officials that have a vision for what they want in their municipalities, throughout the county, anywhere. There's a lot of stuff that's on their way in, and the Berks County market for businesses that want to come here and give people opportunities for jobs and opportunities for entertainment and all those fun things, they're coming, and they're coming in hot, right? So that's really, really exciting. And being on the planning commission, I went to Albright College. I got my master planning certification, I think it's called. It's through the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Institute. Okay, yeah. I got that, which was a really good education on the process. A lot of people think of government work as doing a bunch of paperwork, and it kind of is. Right. But you learn it and you get it out of the way and you get good at it. And speaking of which, people,
it's very procedural.
It is. Oh yeah. And it never ends. And the second you think you did everything, you'll have the solicitor, your attorney in one corner saying, not yet. You'll have the, civil engineer. It's and there can always be more. Yes. That's why things happen. That's why mistakes happen. That's why, developments happen that maybe shouldn't, because they didn't strengthen their ordinances, which, we've seen in Maidencreek and in other municipalities. But in that case, something procedural, something that's a lot, you get good at it over time. And it's the same thing, like, we talked about before the podcast, being on 14 boards and committees that, even you said, are you going to slow down eventually? It's something you get good at. It's something that you get involved in. You learn how to manage your time. There are some late nights. I didn't get home until 9:00. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but it's part of the game, and you just have to know how to balance it.
And how do you organize all that for yourself?
I have a really big calendar. Okay. I would love to have a really glorious answer for you, but I just stay diligent with staying organized. I stay diligent with making sure I have the meetings in place on my calendar, making sure I'm in constant communication with people, that I don't miss anything. And then what's also important is I give myself enough time to actually do the work for the organization. I can't just be on the board or be on a committee and show up once a month or once every 2 months, sit there and then leave. There's things in between then, and that's what's important is setting aside the time for that. And that does
and
make
actually getting somewhere with the stuff you're doing.
Correct. Right. Being intentional. Right. And that's why, what I do, I'm very, I wouldn't say cautious, but I'd say intentional about the organizations I get involved in. I normally don't get involved unless I think there's something I can do to change what's happening that would end in a positive manner. Olivet has gone through some transition, Olivet Boys and Girls Club, and they were working through a lot of different things, and that's when I kind of got my hands in, and I'm on 3 or 4 committees for them, at the development committee, the marketing subcommittee, the golf signature event committee, the dinner signature. But it's one of those things where I
won't ask you to list every single committee you're on for everything.
I would be here for a while. No, it's one of those things where they were going through transition. They needed help, and that's a good use of my time. Especially when you consider the impact that they have and the impact that they could have if it was a well-oiled machine. They had some infrastructure problems that really needed to be addressed, and they really needed the money to do that, and the money wasn't coming in. So they did a great job as a new board of getting the money in and making the changes they need to have a positive outcome, and things are very good right now. But that's an example of I find what needs to be, I wouldn't say fixed, but improved, and I find a way to improve it. I don't think there's any organization that I'm involved in that's like, oh, this is running so smoothly, life is good, they don't need to improve anything. There's nothing that I think I can do to help impact the organization, that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing is running the way it should. So, finding the organizations that need help, that align with my skill set, which, I think has to do with strategic planning and managing growth and managing change, that, somehow I've had a knack for. I've always been in marketing and communications, and then, moving up to the family business, doing consulting for an agency, and the different things that I've done, I've kind of evolved into being maybe a little bit more high level in the sense that, I can come up with a great marketing and communication strategy that is complemented by different things, not just, I design a flyer.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, that's not that's not the most impactful way.
So where do you find your inspiration from?
So I guess that's a
are you inspired by people?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's
organizations around here. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like I wouldn't say that there is this key group of people that I'm like, they did everything for me and they're mentoring me or whatever. And I have those people.
Well, I was thinking more in the sense of, is
just high level.
You're looking up to, or you aspire to be similar to them, and that's why you're kind of taking down this path too. Because I think I'm probably with a lot of people that would listen to this and say, as you pointed out earlier, at the age you're at and all the things you're doing, there's something that really motivates you and inspires you that's driving this more than someone, I guess, compared to someone who's in your age group.
Right. Yeah. So it's always funny because I have more mentors that have taught me what not to do than what I should do. So when I see the way that some things are handled and I don't agree with it, there's two things that happen. Either I learn more and I realize that I was wrong and that they are doing it the right way, or I get involved and I realize that it wasn't being done correctly, and that's often a result of having a secret agenda or just not having the interest of the organization in mind or whatever. I'm not even coming up with any key examples in my head.
Yeah.
Not that I would say them anyways, but it's it's just one of those things that there are people in my life that have helped me in personal ways, like abstaining from drug use and things like that, that have positively influenced me away from doing that by me seeing what happens when someone abuses drugs. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that I think really motivates me. But the other thing that we kind of alluded to earlier was that I have a chip on my shoulder to prove that Berks County is more than my generation makes it out to be. Especially, I think my generation isn't very optimistic about anything. The best way that I can explain it, and it isn't the most professional way to say it, but there are a lot of keyboard warriors, there are a lot of complainers, there are a lot of pessimistic people, and they just like to complain.
Yeah,
they don't
have kind of taken a back seat.
Exactly. They like to backseat drive. They don't. But the second you give them an opportunity to change what they don't like, they don't want to do it. Or they don't know how to do it, or they they don't exactly. They think they do, but then they don't. So
then they start learning like everybody else that things are hard. And it doesn't always go. It's not easy just to quick fix something and you're good.
Yeah. So that's kind of my position is, there's a lot of great things and there's a lot of great people in the county. So I don't want to say that like the people that are influencing change, whether it's nonprofit organizations, government officials, or whatever, that they all stink and I'm better than everyone. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that there's a lot of good people, but there's also a lot of people that complain out of ignorance and they don't want to get involved, whether that's just being informed or actually doing something to help. And what happens is when there's a lot of discussion about something, good or bad, I look into it. People look into it. That's natural, right? It's in front of your face on the media, thanks to guys like you, and you want to learn more about it. And almost every time I learn more about it, and I realize, oh no, they're doing the right thing. It's and then I think, oh, I should help. They could use my help. They can use my extra set of hands.
Well, that's, I guess, is what I was asking about the inspiration for.
Yeah.
Because you're taking that next step is how can I help? How can I get involved?
Right.
That's the next step you're taking that a lot of people don't take that next step in the county or city or. they're not looking for that extra thing. And I understand some of that might be work schedule or personal. There's a lot that we all deal with, too. So it's not like we all just have free time to get involved in everything.
Right. Yeah, I am 21, so I don't have a family yet.
Well,
and, so I do have more time than most. I can't say that I don't. I've filled that time now, but I mean, so that said, I there's some of the things that I'm getting involved in now, as much as I didn't think I would. I kind of dispelled the idea of politics away. I want to help politicians because I want to help the people of Berks County, of Maidencreek Township, of Fleetwood School District.
Give me an example of how you want to help, or maybe there's something in your own community that you've seen that you can help with.
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah. So first and foremost, especially when you look at something like Maidencreek Township, you look at, taxes. They raise taxes, and people say, oh my gosh, why did they do that? What are they thinking? And then you get involved and you see that, there's a reason that they had to do it. They didn't want to do it, right? It's things like that. I'm not saying that I'm a proponent of increasing taxes, but it's a good example of that. There's always something that's underlying.
What was going on,
right?
From someone being on the outside and then saying, okay, let me look into this more.
And that's how I got involved in Maidencreek. It's a perfect example. We had things going on in Maidencreek. We had a supervisor that wasn't really liked, that was causing some turmoil. For those that don't know, township supervisor, it's the elected official for the township. Maidencreek has 3. It's a board of supervisors, and they essentially serve as both the executive and legislative branch. It's just one governing body. There was one bad supervisor out of the 3 that was causing turmoil, wasn't well liked, and just like a lot of people did at that time, I got engaged. I found out what was happening, and I made my own opinion, and I didn't like what was happening, so I started to get involved to help, and eventually opportunities opened up, and I got my hands in, and that's really because, again, I have a passion for my people of Maidencreek, my people of Berks County. I don't really go outside of the county too much, except for when I'm traveling for work and things like that. All I really know is Berks County, and all I know is that what I have is enough. So, one thing I'm doing in Berks County now, or I should say Maidencreek Township, is I did just announce that I'm running for township supervisor, which is great. For 12 years, David Frank was involved. He's now, he's older and he's got some health problems, and his wife does too. And, I think he's felt like he's made the impact that he's had to. And he's a great, great man. He was a police chief for many years. He was a volunteer firefighter. He was an EMT and served on an ambulance. I mean, he was just all in on his community, and he's finally stepping down, and he has that open seat, and I think it's a really good opportunity for me to not only influence myself or influence the township government to make good things happen, especially when I'm younger and I want things to be modernized and things like that. But it's a good opportunity for me to engage the public, engage the residents of Maidencreek, and we're lucky that we have a really engaged community. They're really just, for the most part, everyone has their bad apples, but it's mostly positive people that want to see good things happen, but they just don't know how to get involved. Right. So having good things like, you reporting on things in Maidencreek. We have a private Facebook group that I run that has 3,000 members for a 9,200 population. That's pretty great. That many people are involved and engaged. So I'm hoping that as a township supervisor, I can do that same thing while addressing some of the common issues, right? It's, one of the main things is emergency services. That's one thing that is getting more and more complicated. Things are getting more expensive. When you look at ambulance services, insurance companies are just starting to blatantly not cover what they should. There's state legislation that restricts the ambulance companies from collecting the money they need to.
Who covers ambulance for them?
For Maidencreek, it's Northern Berks CMS.
Oh, it's not. Right.
And they're in a position, and almost every company, ambulance company in Berks County is in the position that they were running out of money because they couldn't collect what they needed to. And we've all, I mean, hopefully not all, and probably not all, but we've seen ambulance bills. They're not cheap. You take one Band-Aid off of a first aid kit and they'll charge you the whole first aid kit. A lot of that is a product of insurances deciding what to charge and what not to charge, so they have to get what they can when they can get it.
There's a bigger system at play.
100%, and it's choked every ambulance company in the county. And not a lot of people know that because they don't get involved to know. And that's something that, as an elected official and as someone in the community,
what the paramedics are being paid, and
that's another thing.
There's a lot to unpack even there.
It's tough to. I think now we're like okay in terms of how many ambulances we have in service throughout the county, but paramedics are being paid $28 an hour. Their scope isn't much different. What they can do isn't much different than a registered nurse. And I mean, what's a registered nurse making an hour? A lot more than $28. It's really not that much different. The only difference is you get a lot less tools. You're not in a hospital. You're in a box in the back of a truck that's going 60 miles an hour down the highway.
Around,
You know what I mean? It's almost a little bit harder, but and you look at EMTs and that's they help the paramedics. I mean, they're making 14 to 16. If they're lucky, they're making $20 an hour, which even then you're not going to survive on these days. If you have if you and your partner in life are both EMTs making $20 an hour, which I think is the high end of the pay scale, you're going to struggle to afford an apartment. You know what I mean? It's really not enough. So people aren't doing it. And it's really unfortunate. And now what we're seeing countywide is municipalities are now charging an additional tax or charging an additional fee, or doing something to generate more revenue for the ambulance company because they're just coming up with deficits year over year, and Northern Berks was in the same boat. Stephen Babella, the executive director for the ambulance, did everything he could. He was just $100,000+ short, which, it's a small business. I mean, it's a nonprofit organization, but it's think of, you're running a business, you're $120,000 in the hole. How long are you going to be able to sustain that? You can't. And we can't go without EMS.
Well, I was just going to bring it up, is that it's not like your typical nonprofit or other organization where, it's 9 to 5 and that's it. I mean, these are services that you need, 24 hours a day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you
it
look
affects
at
all of us, right?
You never
know when something's going to happen.
And it's something that's in the back of someone's mind until the second they need it. And when you call 911, you want that ambulance there in 2 minutes. If we don't have enough ambulances in service, that means they're more spread out, which means that they're not going to get to you in time, and 30 seconds could be the difference. You know what I mean?
I'm got to come from out of the area. Or
Exactly, and that's a lot of what we're seeing. I'm a volunteer firefighter for Blandon Fire Company. I've been doing that since I was 16, I believe. And in doing that, I mean, there was times that, luckily only a few that, we walked in, and the second we walked in, they went into cardiac arrest. And that's, in Blandon Fire Company, we have a good response time. Imagine if we didn't have a good response time. When they went 2 or 3 minutes without CPR or someone there to bring them back or keep them alive, until we got them to the hospital, we need those resources, and a lot of people don't realize that. So,
well, I think you also pointed out something that I don't think a lot of people understand is that fire trucks and firefighters go out to medical calls too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point. The ambulance, So when you're saying that, you weren't there as the EMT or someone from an ambulance getting there, and that also takes resources too. So
well, and a lot of times, what are we're not going to park in their driveway with a fire truck, so we're going to park in the street, which is going to reduce it down to one lane. So then the police show up to direct traffic, and it's really what it comes down to, especially with, we call it the EMS crisis in Pennsylvania, and more refined down to Berks County. You can either give them the resources they need, or you don't. And if you don't, then people are going to die. It's I mean, when you talk about the metaphor of having blood on your hands, that's literally what it is. it's important that people are fiscally responsible, not just in terms of being conservative as a government official and saving money where you can, but putting the money in the right places, making proactive investments, right? For example, we're talking about Maidencreek Township or a township. We're not, we don't have a $1 billion budget. I don't think our budget is $10 million. I don't think it's $5 million, right? It's really not anything crazy, but one thing we do manage are the roads. If there's a road that isn't in good shape and we don't repair it or maintain it, it's going to fall apart, and then it's going to cost how much more to fix it. Think about a bridge. Right? That's a small bridge is $250,000 that you just because you don't maintain it. Because you don't maintain it. I mean, think going back to the HVAC industry. If you don't maintain your furnace, if you don't clean your flame sensor and replace your filter, it's going to go south real quick.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's going to go south real quick, and then you're going to go from buying a $20 air filter, which is on the higher end, or a $150 flame sensor to a $4,000 furnace.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in running a township. So, what we're looking at now, especially in Maidencreek, is there are things that have been done in Maidencreek that, we've had no choice but to be reactive and raise taxes because there are things that we didn't think of, like the cost of fire trucks being what they are now.
Yes.
Blandon just had to get a new ladder truck. It was $1.4 million.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
We just got a new engine, or we just ordered a new engine, and it's like 1.3, and it's going to take 4 years to get here.
Yeah,
I mean,
I remember the city of Reading was doing a lot of that, and the cost, and
it is
just started now getting different things in. So
I mean, it really is an uphill battle, So something that I'm looking forward to, and I think, I don't want to speak poorly of the township now. I think they've done a great job handling what they could, especially the current board. I mean, the current board is rock solid, but what I'm looking forward to doing is being more proactive, being more intentional, right? I'm a strategic planning guy. I like to plan. Every year for our business, what I've started doing is I come up with a 15-page plan of all the things that we want to do in terms of fixing our different processes and revamping them and introducing new technology. We're taking a really big initiative on technical training this year. So, having the passion to set the intention and then following through with the intention and getting it done. It's a really simple method, right? You have the intention, you do something intentionally, and you plan to do it that way. You do it. Maybe you have to modify your plan. You fulfill what you have to in that plan, and then you measure the results. It's a really simple process that can be replicated in a lot of different ways, across 14 boards and committees in Maidencreek Township, right? It's a simple thing that takes a lot of people to learn, and we go back to the point of being in college, right? You could go 4 years in college, you could go 6 years in college, and you don't learn that because you haven't been punched in the face with failure enough to realize that this is what you need to do if you want to do anything. You make a plan. You can't do something without a plan. You make a good plan and you get it done. So what I'm looking forward to in Maidencreek Township is being intentional with every single thing we do, which I think is huge. It's different than the small town politics that we're used to. And mind you, I love small town politics because, it's not, what I would consider capital P politics, right? We're not talking about major issues, abortion, right? That's not something that affects Maidencreek Township. It's a major issue, right? People have their stance and they go with it. That's great, right? That's something that we should talk about and discuss and find a solution for. In Maidencreek Township, it's make sure the roads are working, make sure we have emergency services, and that's about it. I mean, you know what I mean? The school district handles the school stuff, right? Right. So it's really, you just focus on the issues and you focus on the simple things. You don't get lost in the, you have this far left person and this far right person. All they do is argue all day. You don't really have that in small town politics. You get and I know you laughed, you get the silly things like, the street light is going in my window and I can't sleep at night, but that's something that can be fixed. Something. Right. There's always something. There's always something, but that's something that's easy to fix. Right. We can't solve a lot of the things at the federal level easily. Otherwise it would have been done by now.
So how do you get more people involved in local governments and going to meetings? And yeah, how do you do that? Do you have any advice for anybody, or any way you've seen that work out better, or how do you encourage people to do that? Because I see all the time, in the city or even in the county, it's going to a council meeting or going to things like this. They're just it's stuff that impacts people, but it's also not something that either people have the time or sometimes the energy to sit there and for a length of time and to really get into it. Any thoughts?
First thing I would say is, because I'm just a natural organizational leader, I think about what the organization can do to engage more people. One thing that we've done really great as a township is making sure we have an up-to-date website, making sure we send out a newsletter. We send out a calendar that has all the major events of what's going on in the township on that calendar. It's I think first and foremost, what's most important is for the organizations that need help and that should get help, even if they don't need it, it's still input, especially for townships, right, in the county. And I mean, that's huge. That's all you get voted in. So if you make your people happy, you get reelected. And if you don't get reelected. But it's setting the framework internally as an organization to allow for it. And I think that's what's most important. That's what I am passionate about in the organizations I'm involved in, not just, in terms of government, but on an individual level. It's also a lot easier than it used to be. You talk about a good old boys club. There's a lot less good old boys clubs around here. They still exist, but it's less of who you know and more of what you know. It's finding the right channels to get engaged, which can be as simple as, like you said, going to a township meeting. If you go to a township meeting, or even, if the township is correct, and I think is doing it correctly, and I think everyone does, throwing it up on Zoom, making it accessible, you sit there and listen, and there's going to be something that, makes your ears perk, something that is a passion for you. For some, it's as simple as, pickleball courts in Maidencreek Township, which we have. For others, it's, having an influence on the development of a 900,000 square foot warehouse. Those are the
warehouses.
Yeah. Right. And that, those are pertinent things happening here. If organizations communicate better, people will listen, people will have a passion, and people will get engaged. What I think is most important right now is getting involved at the municipal level. There's a lot of complacency in the municipalities around the county. So if we were to, because I could talk about all of the 14 organizations I'm involved in, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about, the township. Go to a township meeting, just sit through it, even if, you call the township and ask for the agenda, read the agenda. That'll tell you what you need to know. That'll tell you what's happening. If you see something interesting, then sit in the meeting. If you don't want to sit there for the full hour or hour and a half that it may turn into, if it's, in the middle of the agenda, then come 20 minutes late or come half an hour late. I mean, it's not to sound like a motivational speaker, but, as an organization, we need to make people passionate. When people get passionate and they care, they're going to show up. They are. So as an organization,
comes with that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So we need to communicate to them that they need the help. And a lot of organizations, they don't do that, or they don't know how to do that. And I think actually that's a product of just marketing and communications constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes if that's something that people just don't have time for, or maybe they just don't have a system set up to do that too. So
well, it's funny. The Board of Supervisors for Maidencreek just had their their reorganization meeting, and in that meeting they decide what the official outlet is to advertise things, which is legal.
Oh,
you can't enact anything without advertising it to a media outlet. They chose an outlet that is no longer prevalent. Right. It is just not.
Well, that's also state, laws, and there's
correct,
a lot of
correct,
that
correct.
Has,
Well, but it's and
I know
I'm
what you're
not.
talking about.
It's just media and marketing and communications, and that theory of getting stuff out to people is constantly evolving that it's hard to keep up with.
We've had people, even ask us for stuff like that, public notices or, what do you call it? There name changes. There's a whole bunch of lists of business, notices for different things, estate sales, and we can't do that. 'Cause,
you don't meet the criteria?
No, the state, digital and media outlets aren't what's the terminology? But basically, they're not eligible to do any of that. You have to be a paper of record that actually prints X amount. There's a whole thing behind it that is required for that. Yeah. And unless those state laws change that allow digital to do that.
Right. That is a perfect example of government being behind.
So, well, it's not just being behind, but there's also money behind that too.
100%.
And that's, because then, the rates that are set up for that and everything start to push towards those places as well. And, it's effectively a monopoly in its own sense that, no one else can do that except for, a few people.
Right.
That, as you said, are not as relevant.
Right.
So it makes that difficult too. So.
Well, that's, you mentioned something really important there. There's only some people involved, and they may not have the best interests of the people or the municipality in mind.
Let's put it this way. We've had school districts and municipalities reach out to us before saying that we have to put it in another place legally, but we want you to put something out too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because we actually need this to get out to people. And they weren't confident that the thing that they have to do is going to even reach anybody.
Right.
So, which I always found was ironic, was that it was like, you're reaching out to us because you needed to get out there, not because this is, it's really backwards in some cases.
But. Well, and that's I'm the same way when I have things to publicize. It's, I reach out to you right away because I know it's actually going to get somewhere. Yeah. It's just because that's how
But just having a system, that if you're going to get better reach somewhere else, and you're not going to do it there, whether it's with me or even on like a social media thing, because there's also issues there because not everyone's on every social media platform. But the point is, though, that it should be going to the place that is going to be reaching everybody regardless. Right. Not necessarily to a small little place that no one's really going to know where it is.
Well, and that ties back to my point. Government needs to effectively communicate to their people.
Right.
And unfortunately, when you get to larger governments, things happen slowly. And when you look at how quickly communications is evolving, the app of choice was Facebook, and then it was Instagram, and maybe you could throw like the Vine app in there. Now it's maybe TikTok.
Vine.
It's
what
just
year
like
are you from?
Vine.
Talking about Vine now.
Yeah, you've never heard of Vine?
Oh no, I've heard of it. That's several years ago.
Well,
many years.
Well, right, but that was the way that people consumed media. Right? Listen,
I loved Vine. Vine was cool.
Yeah, Vine was great, and but that's kind of the situation we're in, is that every year the app of choice may change. The media consumption or the channel on which they use to consume media changes.
It's important to note that those social media outlets always have different ways of putting things out there too. Yep. So like TikTok is only short vertical videos. Yep. That is also not conducive sometimes to the information that needs to go out there.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Same thing with Twitter/X is that if you have a tweet and that goes out that way, maybe that needs to be expanded, where that's not the best way to put that out either.
Sure.
So there isn't a best case scenario of here's one place that everything can sit. Yeah. A lot of times that goes back to basically a website, which then isn't the same thing as, TikTok's not going to do anything with websites. They don't like websites in that case. They're looking for video.
Well, but you know what? I don't think it's I don't think it's a good excuse for government officials to.
Oh, it's not. It's
not. You know, it's. I'm very much of the belief, and I'm kind of notorious, at the office for my professional career, because I get dealt the cards and I say, okay, let's do what we can. Things are very complicated. If being a government official wasn't complicated, then everyone would do it, and no one wants to do it. That's that's another problem. Is it's not a glorious job to have. But it's the people and government officials and governments overall are going to be handed a hard and complex hand of cards, and you just have to figure it out. It's the best you can do. And you know what? There's a lot of people in the community that would be happy to help you do it. And that's a lot of what we see. And there's a lot of people that get angry only because they find out about things too late.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? They find out, after a 1 million square foot warehouse was approved in X township.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's and honestly, I would feel the same way.
What does the future look like for you? What are you looking to obviously do in the future, but where are you looking to go with things?
Sure.
Personally, professionally, with the organizations you're involved in.
Sure.
What does the future look like?
Well, I keep it flexible, right? I talk about strategic planning. I think the most important part of making a plan is being able to veer away from the plan. So I think it would be ill-advised of me to say, I'm going to do this by year X, I'm going to do this by year X. Really, the future for me is taking advantage of the opportunities to make an impact. Right now, that opportunity is township supervisor. So I'm going to work as a township supervisor, and I'm going to do the best that I can with Maidencreek Township and working alongside that board as I stay involved with other organizations. A lot of what I do with the nonprofits I'm involved in, people don't hear about. It's not something that I can tie back to me, and that's not really why I do it. Obviously, township supervisor, an elected official position, is all public, right? That's really where it's going to be an interesting thing for me to adapt to, that I'm going to almost have too much attention, some attention that I don't want, but it's...
Well, I'm sure there'll be someone cutting up this podcast.
Yeah. So, really the future for me is running and winning as township supervisor, taking that open seat, getting involved in Maidencreek Township to make sure that there's a good and proactive plan that doesn't last just the 6 years I'm in office, or if I take 2 terms, the 12 years I'm in office. I wouldn't take longer than that, but setting them on the right path. A lot of the organizations I'm involved in, they're behind. I'm young. I know technology. I want to modernize organizations. I want to set them up for success. And that's really what I want to do with Maidencreek Township. And then we'll see where things go, right? That may mean that I just go and work in the family business the rest of my life. That may mean there's an opportunity to do something higher, like being a state representative, or maybe I move to another area and then I get involved with that municipality, or however it works, a county commissioner or whatever. But it's just continuing to do what I can with what I have. And right now that's Maidencreek Township and taking advantage of that opportunity. So another thing that's important to me is getting people engaged. It's really powerful that I come from the marketing communications background so that I can help publicize the things that are happening. And that can be part of my intentional plan when I work on initiatives. Having that extra knowledge, having that extra experience will work really well in correlation with the great experts with all the experience in the community, and make sure that people know what we're doing and people have a say in what we're doing, which is very, very important.
Sounds like the future is bright.
We'll see.
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say thank you for stopping in and talking about everything you do in the community. And it's certainly a lot. How can people reach out to you? Yeah,
so absolutely. I'm we talked about all the apps that were most prominent. Right now, I'm still most active on Facebook. So, I'm open to talk to anybody.
That is not typical.
I know, right? For someone my age. But, I'd feel like it's the most flexible way to, talk to people. So, yeah, feel free. you'll get my, I'm sorry?
LinkedIn at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I was going to say that next.
Okay.
Yep. So search my name. It's in the title. Look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, connect with me. Shoot me a message if you want to chat. Even if you're just looking at, what your skill set is and how you can get involved, I'd love to help you find what that is. There's always something. Looking at the state level, working, I do some work with the governor's office, which is great. There are some weird boards and commissions that they take advice for that you wouldn't think existed. There's a lot of outlets to get involved in. I'm happy to be connected with you on LinkedIn, with Facebook, and talk to you about those opportunities that are available, and see if there's any way I can help you as well.
Thanks for being in.
All right. Thank you, sir.